The following programming is sponsored by Mark J. Bernstein. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group. Entrepreneur, author, and financial consultant Mark Bernstein helps high-performing entrepreneurial business owners create a vision for the future and follow through on their goals and intentions. Ange Honorato is a business growth strategist who blends psychology and business together to create conscious leaders and business owners who impact the world. Founders Forum is a radio show podcast sharing the real stories behind entrepreneurship as founders discover more about themselves while providing valuable lessons and some fun and entertainment for you. Now, here's Mark and Ange.
Good morning, America. How are you? It's a sunny day in Philadelphia. We always start with that because they say it's always sunny in Philadelphia. Absolutely not true. But it is sunny today. It's a beautiful day. And I am in the studio, but virtually am attached to Ange, who's with us today, and our guest, Juan, who we'll introduce formally in a minute. But once you understand what Juan does, you'll understand why this thought for the day is it. And my thought for the day is you are what you eat. So, Ange, comment on that.
Well, it is probably one of our favorite topics, Mark. And, you are what you eat has never been more appropriate for me. I've prided myself on being a fairly healthy, athletic, clean eating, fishitarian, as I like to say, for many decades. But having had recent surgery, I have been alerted to the fact that just really how important what we eat, the right vitamins, the right minerals, all of it in the right balance is so important because our bodies are the most important machine because we don't have anything else without that. So I'm super excited to dive into Juan's story in this product. But yeah, what you are, what you eat. The only reason why we're here is if we're healthy, right?
Yeah, me too. And I won't go into how I eat, but I'm mostly pescatarian myself. And but I'm always conscious of it, always thinking about it, always trying to improve and get better because it's difficult, particularly when you're on the road a lot and you're out eating a lot and you're traveling. It's the hardest thing. I'm pretty good when I'm stationary, but I'm not stationary too much of the time, and so I'm still working on that. So Juan, tell us about your thoughts on that before we formally introduce you and get into your story.
Yeah, hey Mark, Ange, how you doing, guys?
Good morning.
Yeah, you are what you eat, man. Also, how true is that, right?
Right.
Sounds like a really cool saying, but man. I've been in basically doing sports all my life. So what I eat is very important to my lifestyle. And, eating clean, high protein, that's what builds muscle. And that's what I need to perform better in sports. So I am what I eat.
So Juan has a product related to that. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. I've been munching on some of it in the studio here as we've been prepping. And I'm a big fan of it. But Dr. Juan Salinas is the founder and CEO of Perfect Life Nutrition, LLC, a manufacturer of peanut-based and other plant-based protein snacks, right up our alley. A native of Honduras and now resident in New Jersey, he holds a Ph.D. in food science from Rutgers University and a master's in sports nutrition from the International Olympic Committee. So he's obviously very involved with nutrition and sports, as he mentioned his history. He started the company after spending over 20 years of working as a snack food innovator and product developer for several of the largest CPG food companies in the U.S. Combined with his passion for health and fitness and experience as a professional natural bodybuilder and amateur endurance athlete, he's on a quest to create snacks that are not only delicious but also nutritious. So, and he can be reached, I'll just tell you this, at Pnuff Crunch, PNUFF CRUNCH, and at Juan Pnuff. So that's how you can reach him. And if you want to email him, he's at juan@pnuff.com. And Pnuff is a great name. I do want to start out with, and then we'll go backwards, but Juan is somewhat famous for his appearance on Shark Tank, and it's one that you would remember if you saw it. So tell us about that experience, and Ange can give her comments because she saw it as well.
Funny enough, man, that was just to put in the time frame, like a time frame. That was in 2020.
Wow.
So that was COVID year.
Yeah.
So everything was kind of strange. So if you guys look at that episode, which is season 12, episode 2, I think, you will notice that the set looks a little different than what it normally does. And you will see that the chairs where the sharks are sitting, they look more farther out, and that's because they were trying to keep
separation,
people more of a distance separated because of the COVID thing.
But you were live in the studio. I thought you were going to tell me it was done virtually, but you were live in the studio though.
No, we were live.
Yeah.
But as you remember, LA was shut down, which is where the studio is.
Yeah.
So they had to move it to Las Vegas, and they recreated the whole set in one of the hotels there. So a funny story there is that when we got called out to go there, I figure I'll get to meet all the sharks, and I think that they normally do that. They have a day where you go and meet with them before you go on the show. But we didn't have any of that stuff. Obviously, they were trying to keep people isolated, and little did I know that I had to stay in a hotel without actually leaving the room for 7 days before actually going into the show.
Wow, I didn't know that part.
So they kept us there for 7 days, and they will bring in the food, like just knocking on the door, and they will just pass a tray, close the door.
Wow.
And that was as much interaction I had with other people.
Did they put you up for 7 days at least, I hope? Did they put you up?
Yeah. And it was a nice room.
And they fed you. Okay, so that part.
A nice view of the pool, which I couldn't go to.
Right. Unbelievable.
Well, if anybody doesn't get a chance, they should go to YouTube and watch it. And I'm just going to say, Mark, to your point before we get into the story, that I was tuning in because as a fellow Rutgers grad, I was supporting my alumni friend. We're not going to talk about the physique, so everybody can go watch it yourself and see how healthy eating and Dr. Juan made a real impact on Mark Cuban in particular. I know you'll tell us a little bit more about that, but yeah, it was a great episode.
Well, I'll tell you, since no one else is saying it. So he came out dressed like the scholar, doctor that he is, and he's starting to talk about his product the way I remember it, and then he rips off his shirt because he's a bodybuilder, and obviously connecting health with nutrition and with the product, and he got quite a reaction, especially initially from the female shark or sharks. I forget if there were one or two at that time. Lori, I think, was one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So that's a pretty accurate description, right?
Well, Barbara.
Oh, Barbara, right. Barbara, that's right. So anyway, and check it out anyway. It was great. It was a really great feature on there. Was that a helpful experience too in your business, Shark Tank?
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. It did so great for our business, especially online, because at the time, because of the COVID situation, it was really hard to really do much in the retail space. Yep. So everything went online, and having the show kind of put us on the map, where people could actually directly order from our website or from Amazon. And so we have this huge bump on sales.
Yeah.
As the show was starting, we started seeing the numbers go up, which is kind of crazy.
And you did get, Ange mentioned, I think Mark Cuban invested, correct?
Mark Cuban did, yeah.
Yep.
We are partners still.
Still partners, nice.
We work with him on a weekly basis.
Oh, do you? Do you speak with him?
Awesome. I love Mark.
Are you working with his people, or are you working with him?
Yeah, he has a team.
Yeah.
So we work weekly with his team, but whenever we have more of a high-level strategic, questions or we want to hear his opinion, then normally we communicate through email. And he's pretty quick to respond.
Is he? Nice? I'm with Ange. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a sensible.
I'm a big fan.
Extremely bright guy. So anyway, tell us about business.
Sensible billionaire.
Our last show we did a show this morning, and we talked about the peaks and valleys of entrepreneurs, which there certainly are. And because we had a guest that didn't make it, he got confused on the date, as it turns out, Ange. Ange and I just spoke, and we talked about our own peaks and valleys as entrepreneurs. I'm sure you haven't had any of those, right?
I don't know. I'm a scientist, and I used to work at a lab where we have an apparatus called a gas chromatograph. You guys ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And if you look at the output of that chromatograph, really what it's measuring is chemical compounds on a complex product. Mm-hmm. But what it looks like is ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. That's a chromatograph. And that's a very good picture of what the entrepreneur, journey looks like.
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with that.
By the way, I realized before we get more into the journey, we didn't really talk about your product, which is, because I've got it in front of me in the studio, it's called Pnuff, P-N-U-F-F Crunch, Peanut Puffs. And I have the cinnamon, which Juan and I agree are our favorite flavor. It's really delicious.
Yeah.
And I had TJ, our engineer, try it because I'm already a fan. And by the way, I just need to tell you, because I look for the healthy ingredients and try to eat very little in the way of snack foods. But this particular one has one serving of 130 calories, has 5 grams of protein and only 3 grams of sugar and 3 grams of fiber, which is really good as well. So you would think that doesn't taste very well. But TJ was hungry this morning, hadn't eaten breakfast, so he got to try it. And what did you think, TJ?
I actually really enjoyed it, honestly. I'm not a big healthy food guy, but I did really enjoy it, honestly.
I know. You wanted to you were kind of reluctant to tell me how much you liked it because I told you how healthy it was. So I get that.
Yeah, I'm not a big healthy food guy, but I mean, it actually did taste really good. It doesn't even taste like it's a healthy food, honestly.
Right. That's the point, right, Juan? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you developed it and who you're marketing it to, et cetera. Thanks, TJ, for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because it's the same thing. Everybody wants to have something that tastes good. That's the number one thing. And I think there's a lot of, products fail in the market because they have the right nutrition, but they don't taste good. And my training in all these large CPG companies I used to work for, their main focus was taste. And that's kind of like the opposite, right? Because they didn't care how much, what was in it, as long as it tasted really good. And everything was based on, do the consumer love it? Do they like it? Do they think it's tasty? And if they did, then they would launch it. My goal was to create the same, feeling on people, but with good ingredients, clean ingredients, good nutrition. So, initially my guide rails were, it's got to have high levels of protein, at least 5 grams. It's got to be low in sugar. It's got to be higher in fiber and actually lower in fat than most other snacks, right?
All
so
right.
If you look at the fat, it's about half of what your normal, typical, potato chips and things are.
Also gut friendly, which I forgot to say, which is really important as well. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and especially now, there's a lot of diets, people that have restrictions on the diet.
Excuse me, but
I wanted to make sure their products were easy on the gut.
I wanted to chew it in the microphone just so people know I'm eating a couple as we're talking. Because that's so much I like them.
I got a funny story about crunch as well, because that was flavor is one thing, texture is something that complements that flavor. And there's a lot of scientific evidence out there that for a snack, having that crunch is essential. It has to have it. And there's a lot of reason for it. But basically, that was another thing.
My wife is very cognizant of that. She'll say, I have to have a snack that's crunchy. And I was like, you're crazy. But you're right. There's a thing, that's the thing about that.
There are methods of actually measuring that crunch as well, where you put sensors here right behind your ears, and then you chew on the product and, it captures the sound, and you can measure, as you're developing the product, you can measure how much sound is making and when it's the right level of crunch.
So I'm very auditory, and my wife knows this, but food sounds can drive me crazy. So she loves eating the loudest food she can find. So the crunchy foods is great. So we've adapted to that over many years. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Just adding a little humor.
There's a lot of science behind these products that we make in terms of making sure that it does provide what people are looking for, not only from a satisfaction but also from a nutrition. And that's how we came out with this product.
So you have a great product. How's it going from a marketing and business point of view?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy to say that we're now on Whole Foods. We're in Wegmans.
Ah,
yeah.
Nice. I didn't know that.
So we're in the Northeast. So we're in some of the local retailers like ShopRite. I don't know if there's some Kings down in Philadelphia, but I believe there might be some Balducci's.
High-end Balducci's.
So we're expanding as well as online, right? That's kind of being a bread and butter, especially after COVID. We have our own website and Amazon.com, where we can sell direct to the consumer as well.
I believe I bought them. It was either your website or Amazon before they were in stores. So, and I bought a lot of them. So normally I ask bags, so I'll stop at Whole Foods later and get some. Is it all Whole Foods? Yeah. Is it all of the stores or?
Northeast. So and all the Whole Foods in the Northeast.
Nice. So we were starting to talk about peaks and valleys before, and we need to take a break right now. So let's come back and talk about peaks and valleys and where you are and some of the strengths you've built from being an entrepreneur.
Do you remember the joy of discovering your passion? The Plant a Seed, Inspire a Dream Foundation believes every child deserves that chance, providing annual scholarships for kids ages 10 to 18 from low-income families to pursue their dreams in athletics, art, music, and more. Based in Yardley, PA, they serve the greater Philadelphia region and South Jersey, connecting young people with positive role models and life-changing activities. They've already helped 837 children find their passion, and your child could be next. And don't miss out on Grad to Grown Up by Jean Rice and Courtney Begrowitz. Your ultimate guide to launching personal and professional success. 100% of book proceeds supports the Plant a Seed, Inspire a Dream Foundation. If someone in your family needs help finding and following their dreams, apply now at plantaseedfoundation.org. Empower a child's passion today.
We're back on Founders Forum. By the way, that commercial from Plant a Seed Foundation was a foundation started by Gene Rice and his wife, a former guest, a very successful guy in the executive recruiting business, who basically is dedicating his, his next phase of his life to this, to the cause of helping young children get educations that wouldn't otherwise be able to get them. So, pretty cool foundation if you want to check it out. So anyway, we're talking about peaks and valleys.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Check it out, Juan. But so what kind of challenges have you had, and how have you dealt with those in business?
Oh yeah, I mean, the list of challenges goes on and on. But I tell you, one of our biggest challenges that maybe some of our audience, could relate to, and that's the manufacturing side.
Yeah.
Every product requires specific manufacturing equipment to be made, and finding companies that have that equipment is the first challenge. Second challenge is to make sure that how they do it is high quality and consistent quality. And then, the third is to make sure that what they're doing is not, something that could hurt, the consumer. In our case, we're searching for companies like that for the longest time, but in our product, we have peanuts, and peanut is considered one of the, list of allergens here in the U.S. And therefore it needs to be monitored. And a lot of the companies that that actually had the equipment that we needed, which is not that many in the US already, they, were making other products in the same line, and they didn't want to have a peanut containing product in there because of the possibility of a cross-contamination. So that's when the challenges started for us. I mean, we've been in business for almost 10 years, and we have moved manufacturing facilities about 5 times in 10 years.
But
so you can imagine every 2 years moving out of your house.
but now you have a solution. It sounds like we've talked about. I want to ask you about that, and I also want to ask you if you're thinking about any non-peanut products, because these allergies do seem to be prevalent, at least by perception in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I gotta say that there's the peaks and valleys. Every time that we move from one location to another, things have been improving. So we haven't gone back,
right?
which is good. So from the beginning till now we're in a position where we think it's our last move finally,
nice. Right? And
we feel very great about the quality of the product and the consistency of it and everything else. So that's kind of where we stand today.
Well, your solution, if you don't mind me saying this, is really a collaboration. And I bring this up because we've had I've done a lot of work with manufacturing, and we've had a guest on the show named Lois Sonstegard, who's worked with a lot of manufacturers, and she talks about collaboration amongst them. You know, if somebody has a strength and you need that strength, you work together, and in essence, that's what you're doing right now, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were talking before, Mark, that it's really hard for startup companies to be able to sustain a full manufacturing facility.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of payroll that goes into it,
Yep.
maintenance, equipment maintenance, rent, right, which is very expensive.
Yep.
And so if you don't have enough volume to cover all those expenses, you're basically on the negative at all times. So finding our solution was to find a partner where we can, put our machines in their facility and then work together in terms of developing new products and utilizing those equipment to manufacture not only our product, but also new innovation, innovation that we can present to other companies or retailers for their own private label, retail products. So that's kind of the solution that we found, and it's been working great for us.
What's your future look like? We talked about, if this were a year from today, and you and I are talking, which hopefully we will be, and you're looking back on the last year, what would have to happen, Juan, for you to feel like that was a successful year in your business and your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think for our business, for Pnuff, we were looking to expand more, and especially here in the Northeast. As mentioned before, we're already starting with some retailers. We have a list of other retailers that we're talking to for 2025, and that's going to be a success year for us. We're looking into potentially starting a whole couple new flavors also next year, just to keep the flavor rotation fresh. And personally, for me, I'm more of a creator. I love creating new stuff, especially with protein. That's my thing. So I always have all these new ideas that I want to create, which now with this new partnership, they are going to become possible because they do have a different sets of equipments and other machines that create different types of products. And so the opportunities now, man, to me, I just analyze, I feel so excited like a little kid and, in a playground and be able to just, try different things and see, I can't wait to come up with something that we can present to some of these retailers and get them excited and get some really cool products out there to the market.
Nice. I was starting to ask you before, do you see any non-peanut products? So you have for people with allergies, you'll have something?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the Pnuff brand, I mean, that's the basis of our business.
Yep.
That's what made us different.
Yep.
Is because we have peanuts on that.
Yep.
So for this brand, we'll stay with it. However, we're looking to create other products that don't have peanuts in it, that might have a similar format, a similar texture, but without the allergen.
Maybe different kind of nuts, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at a couple other nuts. The main thing is to come up with for us, it's just plant-based proteins are great. And what I want to make sure is that whatever plant-based protein I put, the combination of it gives you what we call a complete protein profile. So it's a protein that you can actually utilize, that your body utilizes. So there's so many sources of protein that are plant-based, like peas, beans, all kind of legumes. And so we're experimenting with so many of them that don't necessarily have to have a nut in it, for instance. But I'm curious because you're a bodybuilder. Are you plant-based yourself, or do you also eat animal products? Or yeah, no, I'm not plant-based.
Okay, gotcha.
Strictly. However, I've known a lot of plant-based bodybuilders. Yeah. I know that it's sustainable. You can do it.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Probably it's a little more challenging, I think, just because you got to find the sources of protein. You got to think a little harder, maybe, but it's doable. And there's some great products out there that are just plant-based. So I'm excited to where it's going because I think at some point maybe we'll all become plant-based.
So Ange and I are excited about that as well. And you have any questions?
Yes,
because we have only a few minutes left, and I've been talking a lot. So
Yeah, no, I was just going to kind of put a summary on, we started out talking about you are what you eat and sort of your Shark Tank experience about getting that messaging out. But I'm kind of curious for you, what are you seeing now, Juan, as you're moving forward to get people to share your passion in this way, specifically for protein, right? Because there's so much out in the market. How do you help people kind of cut through that and say, hey, getting the right protein, this has, incremental effects on your health? Is there things that you do to help that messaging?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying different things. Right now, I came up with it's a fitness plan. So this fitness plan, I kind of help promote, healthy eating as well as exercise. And we're actually using these almost as a add-on benefit to anyone that purchases our products. It's almost like, not only are you purchasing a healthier product, but here's some ideas of how you can establish a good, diet regimen that is more healthy, and also, get into doing some exercises. And, I show different routines on how to get, more exercise during the day. So that's one way that we're helping.
Is that on your website? How do people access that?
Yeah, that's on the website. Yeah,
Okay, nice.
if you scroll on the first page, halfway through it, you'll see my picture there with a little book.
Oh, nice. By the way, I think in branding, I think that's like a newer thing that's happening. As an example, I drink matcha tea, and I order it from a company called Rise. It's made with mushroom products, RYZE, and I started getting all these things from them. Where now I actually I journal daily with them. They give you thoughtful questions each day, and it keeps a running tab and a secure site. And I've got like 154 days, I think I'm up to, of journaling with them. And so I'm always going to buy that product because of that, because I thought it was brilliant, because it connects your healthy mind and spirit to the tea, and it makes sense to attach journaling to it. And I think that's a great idea too. I'm going to check that out as well. Exercise with Dr. Juan. I want to check that out.
That was one of the first things. We want to get people to be active. So that's one of my passions. That's one of my goals.
Nice. I think it's great. Given that, because you're doing some important work, what are your thoughts about your legacy?
So in terms of legacy, I mean, the whole Shark Tank thing is giving me a little bit of celebrity thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think, sometimes I walk into places and some people recognize me. That's not what I want, really. If I had to leave a legacy, it's more about, I think, it'd be cool to have created a product that people could resonate and know that they could make their life better, reach their goals, their fitness goals, or their, health lifestyle goals. When I hear people send me messages, on email or Instagram saying, "Hey, I just discovered a product. Oh my God, love it, and it's done so great for me," and all this stuff. That's kind of that makes me feel great. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave.
So you're doing good while building a business, which is great. Listen, I think we're out of time today, so I really appreciate you being here. It took us a while to get together, Dr. Juan Salinas, but great story, great product. Wait, before we go, I had to crunch. I don't usually push products, but I love this one, so I needed to say that. Have a great week. See you next week on Founders Forum.
We hope you enjoyed your time